السيد الرئيس، في البداية أود أن أقدم لكم التهنئة لتوليكم رئاسة مجلس.
Mr. President, I wish to begin by congratulating you on your presidency of the Security Council for this month, and I'd also like to thank Ms. Fatou Bensouda for her briefing on her 21st report. I thank her for all of the efforts over the last few years. Ladies and gentlemen, Libya has recently witnessed positive developments that have led to a unified executive authority and brought an end to the crisis of legitimacy, which was one of the main causes of the conflict for many years. Among the priorities for the new government is leading the country during the preparatory period until the holding of presidential and parliamentary elections scheduled for the end of this year. In addition, we therefore hope that the efforts of the international community will intensify to make these elections a success until stability is achieved to contribute to entrenching the values of freedom, justice, and the rule of law in Libya. Undoubtedly, the Libyan people has spared no effort to build a modern civil state despite the exceptional circumstances that the country is experiencing, and to enhance the principle of accountability and combating impunity. This involves revitalizing the general national reconciliation process, which begins with justice, shedding light on facts, truth and reparations. You will be aware that this is the basis of the transitional justice process, which in turn allows us to turn the page on the painful past in which the Libyan people have suffered for years. In the same vein, and in the context of the efforts made by the government to establish a spirit of tolerance and reconciliation, a few days ago, the Ministry of Justice announced concrete steps to release detainees held in illegal prisons, which in the context of dialogue and reconciliation, 78 prisoners were released. In addition, we witnessed an exchange of prisoners under the auspices of the 5+5 committee, and efforts are continuing for the swift and unconditional release of those held without any charges or arrest warrants around the four corners of Libya. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, we reaffirm the jurisdiction of our national courts to prosecute all accused in accordance with the Libyan Penal Code, which reflects the sovereignty of Libya over its territory and citizens. Libyan courts remain committed to ensuring a fair and impartial trial for all accused persons. In Libya, we view the role of the ICC as complementary to achieving justice and preventing impunity, particularly for those who fall outside the jurisdiction of the state. Therefore, we hope that all states will cooperate with Libyan judicial authorities to conduct the necessary investigations and to transfer those sought for crimes by national courts to the country. In this context, we welcome the existing cooperation between the Libyan Attorney General's Office and the Office of the Prosecutor of the ICC. Ladies and gentlemen, we agree with the information contained in the various reports of Ms. Bensouda regarding human rights violations, war crimes, and crimes against humanity perpetrated in certain regions of Libya, particularly crimes such as the crimes of enforced disappearances, arbitrary detention, secret prisons, extrajudicial trials, and mass graves that were discovered following the recent conflict in Tripoli and its outskirts. We are still awaiting the outcomes of the investigations carried out by the ICC team that recently visited Libya, that is attempting to identify those involved in these grave violations. There are several motives for these crimes, either political, community-based, or criminal motives. And such crimes were committed by armed forces or mercenaries. And we are keen to hear the names of those involved in these. Here, it must be recalled that circumstances may serve some criminals for a while, but they will not escape justice because these crimes are not subject to a statute of limitations. Libya is committed to achieving justice for victims and their families and working to protect all Libyan citizens and foreigners residing on our territory. We reaffirm our commitment to protect illegal migrants against any violations that they may be exposed to during the current crisis. Despite all of these challenges, no efforts will be spared for their transfer when they so desire. But we must also recall that cooperation with specialized in international humanitarian organizations is required, but we will never accept any attempts by some states to politicize the principle of asylum seeking, which goes in contravention of national laws. To resolve this problem, we ask the ICC to prosecute those responsible for human trafficking and international networks, be they in Africa or in Europe. It is not sufficient simply to investigate those responsible within Libya. Ladies and gentlemen, in order to face the aforementioned challenges, we must make headway with the unification of state institutions and reform our judicial system. This requires support for the government and stability within the country, but more importantly than that, we need to bring an end to all kinds of foreign interference in our affairs. The support of the international community and the Security Council for Libyans and their national sovereignty will contribute to achieving justice, reconciliation, and building a state of institutions and law. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, with regard to justice and human rights, even though today's meeting is dedicated to the situation in Libya, we cannot overlook the tragedy currently being experienced by the Palestinian people. And I therefore wish to take this opportunity that the people and to say that the people and government of Libya roundly condemn attacks against Palestinian territories by the occupying powers. These are attacks that began with incidents in the Sheikh Jarrah area and led to attacks against worshippers in the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Desecrating holy sites in the month of Ramadan it continued with barbarous bombings against Gaza, which has claimed the lives of dozens of innocent people, including children and women and children during aid. We therefore urge the Security Council to take effective and practical measures to bring an immediate end to these attacks, to bring an end to the policy of double standards. The aggressor and the attacker and the attacked must not be treated in the same manner. This is a policy that has killed any hope in finding a solution. And as a result of this policy, the principle of self-defense is only granted to one side and not the other. Therefore, we reaffirm that regardless of the scale of the crisis experienced by Libya and regardless of our domestic differences, we remain united. The Libyan people views the Palestinian matter as a crucial matter. The Palestinian cause is a fair cause. The rights of the Palestinian people must be restored until we see the establishment of an independent Palestinian state with its capital in East Jerusalem. I thank you very much for your attention.